using the Criteria API to create queries. The Criteria API is used to define queries for entities in their persistent state by creating query-defining objects. Criteria queries are written using Java programming language APIs, are type-passive, and are portable. Such queries work regardless of the underlying data store. The following topics are addressed here. Overview of the criteria and metamodel APIs using the metamodel API to model entity classes using the criteria API and metamodel API to create basic type-passive queries. Overview of the criteria and metamodel APIs. Similar to JPQL, the criteria API is based on the abstract schema of persistent entities, their relationships, and embedded objects. The Criteria API operates on this abstract schema to allow developers to find, modify, and delete persistent entities by invoking Java Persistence API entity operations. The metamodel API works in concert with the Criteria API to model persistent entity classes for criteria queries. The Criteria API and JPQL are closely related and are designed to allow similar operations in their queries. Developers familiar with JPQL syntax will find equivalent object-level operations in the criteria API. The following simple criteria query returns all instances of the pet entity in the data source. Entity manager M equal criteria builder CB equal M. Get criteria builder. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equal CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Select pet. Type query. Pet. Q equal M. Create query CQ. List. Pet. All pets equal Q. Get result list. The equivalent JPQL query is select P from pet P. This query demonstrates the basic steps to create a criteria query. Use an entity manager instance to create a criteria builder object. Create a query object by creating an instance of the criteria query interface. This query object's attributes will be modified with the details of the query. Set the query root by calling the from method on the criteria query object. Specify what the type of the query result will be by calling the select method of the criteria query object. Prepare the query for execution by creating a type query. T instance, specifying the type of the query result. Execute the query by calling the getResultList method on the type query. T object. Because this query returns a collection of entities, the result is stored in a list. The tasks associated with each step are discussed in detail in this chapter. To create a criteria builder instance, call the getCriteriaBuilder method on the entity manager instance. Criteria builder CB equal M. Get criteria builder. The query object is created by using the criteria builder instance. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. The query will return instances of the pet entity, so the type of the query is specified when the criteria query object is created to create a type-passive query. The from clause of the query is set, and the root of the query specified, by calling the from method of the query object. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. The select clause of the query is set by calling the select method of the query object and passing in the query root, CQ. Select pet. The query object is now used to create a type query. T object that can be executed against the data source. The modifications to the query object are captured to create a ready-to-execute query. Type query. Pet. Q equal M. Create query CQ. This type query object is executed by calling its getResultList method, because this query will return multiple entity instances. The results are stored in a list. Pet. Collection valued object. List. Pet. All pets equal Q. Get result list. Using the metamodel API to model entity classes. The metamodel API is used to create a metamodel of the managed entities in a particular persistence unit. For each entity class in a particular package, a metamodel class is created with a trailing underscore and with attributes that correspond to the persistent fields or properties of the entity class. The following entity class, example, pet, has 4 persistent fields: id, name, color, and owners. Package example, entity public class pet, id protected long id, protected string name, protected string color, many to unprotected set. Person, owners, the corresponding metamodel class is. Package example, static metamodel pet, class pet public static volatile singular attribute, pet long, id public static volatile singular attribute, pet string name public static volatile singular attribute, pet string color public static volatile set attribute, pet person, owners. The metamodel class and its attributes are used in criteria queries to refer to the managed entity classes and their persistent state and relationships. Using metamodel classes that correspond to entity classes are of the following type: JAVAX, persistence, metamodel, entity type. T. Metamodel classes are typically generated by annotation processors either at development time or at runtime. Developers of applications that use criteria queries may generate static metamodel classes by using the persistence provider's annotation processor, or may obtain the metamodel class by either calling the getModel method on the query root object or first obtaining an instance of the metamodel interface and then passing the entity type to the instance's entity method. The following code snippet shows how to obtain the pet entity's metamodel class by calling root t getModel entity manager m equal criteria builder cb equal m get criteria builder criteria query cq equal cb create query pet class root pet equal cq from pet class entity type pet equal pet getModel. The following code snippet shows how to obtain the pet entity's metamodel class by first obtaining a metamodel instance by using entity manager getMetamodel and then calling entity on a metamodel instance. Entity manager m equal metamodel meter equal m getMetamodel entity type pet equal m entity pet class. Using the Criteria API and MetaModel API to create basic type-passive queries. The basic semantics of a criteria query consists of a select clause, a from clause, and an optional where clause, similar to a JPQL query. Criteria queries set these clauses by using Java programming language objects, so the query can be created in a type-passive manner, creating a criteria query. The JAVAX persistence Criteria Builder interface is used to construct criteria queries, selections, expressions, predicates, ordering to obtain an instance of the Criteria Builder interface. Call the getCriteriaBuilder method on either an Entity Manager or an Entity Manager factory instance. The following code shows how to obtain a Criteria Builder instance by using the Entity Manager. getCriteriaBuilder method, Entity Manager m equal Criteria Builder cb equal m. Get Criteria Builder. Criteria queries are constructed by obtaining an instance of the following interface: JAVAX, persistence, criteria query objects define a particular query that will navigate over one or more entities. Obtain criteria query instances by calling one of the Criteria Builder. Create query methods. For creating type-passive queries, call the Criteria Builder. Create query method as follows: criteria query pet cq equals cb. Create query pet class. The criteria query object's type should be set to the expected result type of the query. In the preceding code, the object's type is set to criteria query pet. For a query that will find instances of the pet entity, in the following code snippet, a criteria query object is created for a query that returns a string. Criteria query string cq equals cb. Create query string. Class. Query roots. For a particular criteria query object, the root entity of the query, from which all navigation originates, is called the query root. It is similar to the from clause in a JPQL query. Create the query root by calling the from method on the criteria query instance. The argument to the from method is either the entity class or an entity type. T. Instance for the entity. The following code sets the query root to the pet entity, criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. The following code sets the query root to the pet class by using an entity type. T. Instance. Entity manager M equal. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Criteria queries may have more than one query root. This usually occurs when the query navigates from several entities. The following code has two root instances. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet1 equals CQ. From pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet2 equals CQ. From pet. Class. Querying relationships using joins. For queries that navigate to related entity classes, the query must define the join to the related entity by calling one of the from join methods on the query root object or another join object. The join methods are similar to the join keyword in JPQL. The target of the join uses the metamodel class of type entity type. T. To specify the persistent field or property of the join entity. The join methods return an object of type join. X, Y, where X is the source entity and Y is the target of the join. In the following code snippet, pet is the source entity, and owner is the target criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Join. Pet. Owner. Owner equal pet. Join pet. Owners. Joins can be chained together to navigate to related entities of the target entity without having to create a join. X, Y, instance for each join. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Entity type. Owner. Owner equal M. Entity owner. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Join. Owner. Address. Address equals CQ. Join pet. Owners. Join owner. Addresses. Path navigation in criteria queries. Path objects are used in the select and where clauses of a criteria query and can be query root entities, join entities, or other path objects. The path get method is used to navigate to attributes of the entities of a query. The argument to the get method is the corresponding attribute of the entity's metamodel class. The attribute can either be a single-valued attribute, specified by singular attribute in the metamodel class, or a collection-valued attribute, specified by one of collection attribute, set attribute, list attribute, or map attribute. The following query returns the names of all the pets in the data store. The get method is called on the query root, pet, with the name attribute of the pet entity's metamodel class. Pet is the argument. Criteria query. String. CQ equals CB. Create query string. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. entity pet, class, root, pet, pet equals CQ, from pet, class, CQ, select pet, get pet, name, restricting criteria query results. The results of a query can be restricted on the criteria query object according to conditions set by calling the criteria query. Where method. Calling the where method is analogous to setting the where clause in a JPQL query. The where method evaluates instances of the expression interface to restrict the results according to the conditions of the expressions. Expression instances are created by using methods defined in the expression and criteria builder interfaces. The expression interface methods. An expression object is used in a query select, where, or having clause. Table 35-1 shows conditional methods you can use with expression objects. Table 35-1 conditional methods in the expression interface method description is null tests whether an expression is null is not null tests whether an expression is not null and tests whether an expression is within a list of values. The following query uses the expression is null method to find all pets where the color attribute is null. Criteria query pet CQ equals CB. Create query pet class metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel entity type pet equal M. Entity pet class root pet equals CQ. From pet, class, CQ, where pet, get pet, color, is null. The following query uses the expression in method to find all brown and black pets. Criteria query, pet, CQ equals CB. Create query pet, class, metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel, entity type. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet equal CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Where pet. Get pet. Color. In brown, black. The in method also can check whether an attribute is a member of a collection. Expression methods in the criteria builder interface. The criteria builder interface defines additional methods for creating expressions. These methods correspond to the arithmetic, string, date, time, and case operators and functions of JPQL. Table 35-2 shows conditional methods you can use with criteria builder objects. Table 35-2 conditional methods in the criteria builder interface. Conditional method description equal tests whether two expressions are equal not equal tests whether two expressions are not equal GT tests whether the first numeric expression is greater than the second numeric expression G tests whether the first numeric expression is greater than or equal to the second numeric expression Lieutenant tests whether the first numeric expression is less than the second numeric expression Lit tests whether the first numeric expression is less than or equal to the second numeric expression between tests whether the first expression is between the second and third expression in value like tests whether the expression matches a given pattern. The following code uses the criteria builder equal method criteria query pet CQ equals CB. Create query pet class metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel entity type pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Where CB. Equal pet. Get pet. Name. Fido. The following code uses the criteria builder. GT method. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Date some date equal new date. CQ. Where CB. GT pet. Get pet. Birthday, date. The following code uses the criteria builder. Between method, criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Date first date equal new date. Date second date equal new date. CQ. Where CB. Between pet. Get pet. Birthday, first date, second date. The following code uses the criteria builder. Like method, criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Where CB. Like pet. Get pet. Name, do. Multiple conditional predicates can be specified by using the compound predicate methods of the criteria builder interface, as shown in Table 35-3. Table 35-3 compound predicate methods in the criteria builder interface method description and a logical conjunction of two Boolean expressions or a logical disjunction of two Boolean expressions, not a logical negation of the given Boolean expression. The following code shows the use of compound predicates in queries. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Metamodel meter equal M. Get metamodel. Entity type. Pet. Pet equal M. Entity pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Where CB. Equal pet. Get pet. Name, Fido. And CB. Equal pet. Get pet. Color, brown. Managing criteria query results. For queries that return more than one result, it's often helpful to organize those results. The criteria query interface defines the order by method to order query results according to attributes of an entity. The criteria query interface also defines the group by method to group the results of a query together according to attributes of an entity, and the having method to restrict those groups according to a condition. Ordering results. The order of the results of a query can be set by calling the criteria query. Order by method and passing in an order object. Order objects are created by calling either the criteria builder, ask, or the criteria builder. Desk method. The ask method is used to order the results by ascending value of the past expression parameter. The desk method is used to order the results by descending value of the past expression parameter. The following query shows the use of the desk method. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Select pet. CQ. Order by CB. Desk pet. Get pet. Birthday. In this query, the results will be ordered by the pet's birthday from highest to lowest. That is, pets born in December will appear before pets born in May. The following query shows the use of the ask method. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Join. Owner. Address. Address equals CQ. Join pet. Owners. Join owner. Address. CQ. Select pet. CQ. Order by CB. Ask address. Get address. Postal code. In this query, the results will be ordered by the pet owner's postal code from lowest to highest. That is, pets whose owner lives in the 10,001 zip code will appear before pets whose owner lives in the 91,000 zip code. If more than one order object is passed to order by, the precedence is determined by the order in which they appear in the argument list of order by. The first order object has precedence. The following code orders results by multiple criteria. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. Join. Pet. Owner. Owner equals CQ. Join pet. Owners. CQ. Select pet. CQ. Order by CB. Ask owner. Get owner. Last name, owner. Get owner. First name. The results of this query will be ordered alphabetically by the pet owner's last name, then first name. Grouping results. The criteria query. Group by method partitions the query results into groups. These groups are set by passing an expression to group by. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Group by pet. Get pet. Color. This query returns all pet entities and groups the results by the pet's color. The criteria query. Having method is used in conjunction with group by to filter over the groups. The having method takes a conditional expression as a parameter. By calling the having method, the query result is restricted according to the conditional expression. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Root. Pet. Pet equals CQ. From pet. Class. CQ. Group by pet. Get pet. Color. CQ. Having CB. In pet. Get pet. Color. Value brown. Value blonde. In this example, the query groups the return pet entities by color, as in the preceding example. However, the only return groups will be pet entities where the color attribute is set to brown or blonde. That is, no gray-colored pets will be returned in this query. Executing queries. To prepare a query for execution, create a type query. T. Object with the type of the query result by passing the criteria query object to Entity Manager. Create query. Queries are executed by calling either getSingleResult or getResultList on the type query. T. Object. Single-valued query results. The type query. T. GetSingleResult method is used for executing queries that return a single result. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Type query. Pet. Q equal M. Create query CQ. Pet result equal Q. Get single result. Collection valued query results. The type query. T. Get result list method is used for executing queries that return a collection of objects. Criteria query. Pet. CQ equals CB. Create query pet. Class. Type query. Pet. Q equal M. Create query CQ. List. Pet. Results equal Q. Get result list.